And I certainly had never been introduced to the concept of actually what's in the literature called narrative medicine. It's this idea that your illness actually means something to
Yeah.
your life. It's not a random thing that happens to you. And the materialism that underpins conventional medicine and what I would now refer to as scientism, meaning the belief, almost the religion of science as the defining, nature of reality, it doesn't allow any room, like psychiatrist means a doctor of the soul. I never heard the word soul one time ever in my training. It wasn't a part of what we were looking at. We were looking at this concept of receptors and chemicals. And honestly, most of that is pretty bogus pseudoscience. And I don't use that word lightly. And so that anger really led me to a passionate pursuit of what these symptoms, what a diagnosis could potentially be inviting you toward, right? And how to interact with that. And I, worked with a template of my own healing experience and began to apply that to patients, began to specialize in de-prescribing. And when I say specialize, I just mean I did it a lot. There was
Yeah.
nobody to teach me really that I could tap. And I learned mostly from my patients about how to help women come off of these meds that they'd sometimes been on for decades. And that also introduced me to the concept of the dark night of the soul, which of course
Mm.
I never even contemplated. I was very secular. I was actually an atheist most of my, you know, teenage and early 20s years. And so when I began to watch, these women move through these crises with this fierce commitment to never sending them to a hospital, I learned that these crises have a sort of anatomy to them, right? There is a predictable, sequence of stages, and they would come out the other side like a phoenix rising. They would come out the other side with this reclamation energy, this experience of selfhood, this connection to something way bigger than them that now was like fueling their every step. And it became the reason I would wake up every morning. This was it was my connection really to the divine. It was my connection to what it was that I was here, to support and do, and help me to remember that in the most confusing, disorienting, nihilistic moments of our lives, allowing that to exist, allowing that to simply be, is the necessary. It's a necessary step toward a more expanded definition of who it is that you thought you could be. So I think is to answer your question, this concept of holism is really just taking the whole person's experience into consideration. But of course, I never started a patient on medication ever again, not one time ever after 2010. So it's not like I was really practicing as a psychiatrist in that
Right.
sense. Um, and I think the defining ethos that I began to adopt, that I still stand for today, is that your quote unquote healing, right? This idea of healing, it's not my favorite word to use, but that this idea of healing will come when, however it is that you get there. Of course, I have my own, approach and methodologies, but however it is that you get there, it will come when you no longer see as a problem
Yes.
whatever it is that is actually happening to you. And if you're, bleeding rectally, if you're, not sleeping for months on end, if you have brain fog and bloating and hair loss, in the physical arena, this is the deepest work somebody can do, right? Because we experience divorce and death and loss and financial struggles, and you can do the same work with any challenge, of course. But when it comes to the body, the temptation to triangulate against yourself, against your body, is so programmed and conditioned into us
Yes.
that breaking that spell becomes, advanced mastery. It's sorcery almost that you're practicing. Of course, I never spoke in these terms when I was, a clinician, but I really see it on that level. Like you are playing a very advanced spiritual game, and you're only in the position to do so because you have what it takes to engage it. So it's sort of like you know, will you?
No, no.
Yeah.
It's always so interesting to hear a doctor's journey into this realm of even spirituality. I mean, most of us know that there is body, mind, spirit. We say these words a lot. We kind of embrace it. There's a little bit of the woo-woo, you could say, in that. Of course, there's science behind it, the biochemical, the PNEI system, right? Consciousness and receptors also, you could say, could tap into all of those elements. But it's almost that when you go into medical school, because my father was a conventionally trained doctor,
Hmm.
anesthesiologist, chief of pain services. He would give all the different epidurals and pain pills and everything. And he witnessed that firsthand, the revolving door, and
Yeah.
also a lack in himself of, I'm not truly helping these people. I'm giving them crutches and band-aids. They're coming back worse and giving more crutches and band-aids. And this isn't what I got into this system for. But I realize also that when you go through the conventional system, you're kind of programmed. This is the way to do it. Don't think outside the box. Put these blinders on over 7 years of medical training, residency, everything else, where you come out the other end, even if you had this idea of holism and believed it inside, your intuition told you there needs to be something more. It's so drilled into you. And it
Yeah.
is difficult for doctors to break free of that because, in a sense, it makes sense that you're taught if someone has depression, antidepressants. That's just logical, right?